Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Just Being Honest. I'm your homeboy, your friend, your main man, Lon, whatever you want to call me. Tonight, I want to talk about something that I think that it's a couple of big issues with everyone nowadays. That's defining the definition between a right and a privilege. Now, many of you saying, what's the difference? What's the big deal? Well, it can be a big deal when it comes to some of our legal issues and political issues that we're dealing with today. I want to give an example or a definition. So, a privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. Something to weigh on, something to think about. Now, let's take the definition of rights. All right, that which is morally correct, just, or honorable. Now, many of you are asking, well, where am I going with this? So, I wanted to find something. It is a privilege to own a gun, not a right. Yes, the Second Amendment is a big amendment, but I don't think everyone should have the right or the privilege to own a gun. However, the ability to have an abortion and to vote is a right, not a privilege, not an honor, and nothing that bunch of politicians should take away from people. But for whatever reason, they seem the need to make it harder for minorities to vote, and they make it almost impossible and criminal to make women or to give women the right to have an abortion, which just seems absurd to me. Now, many of these MAGA hat wearing people, these Christians that we call them, feel that they're doing God's work. And it's funny that many of these Christians seem to forget the underlying message of Jesus, that to love thy neighbor. There is no asterisk or saying only love certain neighbors or don't love this neighbor. But he said love thy neighbor, everyone, unconditionally. But they seem to miss the mark on that. And then they worship a man who is probably one of the most immoral people on the face of this earth. Well, and though, I don't know, maybe his kids are close behind. But that's a whole different podcast. I don't see the right why they think everyone should have a gun. I think that you should have to pass a background check, a psychological evaluation, and have to have a waiting period to own a gun. And now what makes it scarier is that they have these things called ghost guns, where people are just putting together with no serial number, no way to trace them. And these are getting in the hands of psychotic, crazy people. And it's just scary times right now. Meanwhile, instead of focusing on that, we have politicians making these outlandish bills trying to make it illegal for a woman to have an abortion. Now, I'm not saying it's justifiable to just go be willy-nilly and then go have an abortion. But at the same time, I don't think a politician, particularly most of these politicians are old white men, should be telling women what they can and can't do with their bodies. In terms of incest, rape, medical complications, I can see why a woman would consider having one. It's not for me to decide what's moral or just. It doesn't involve me. It's none of my business, and it's not my place to judge. Now, I don't think it should be used as a form of birth control. I think we need to practice ethics and morals and be safe. But at the end of the day, it's someone's decision and they have to live with it. Now, as far as voting rights, all these people are saying, oh, Biden stole the election. There was a lot of illegal votes being cast and all this other stuff. First of all, mail-in voting is nothing new. They were doing mail-in voting since the Civil War. soldiers were casting in ballots, and the rate of error that is involved in mail-in voting is what? Maybe less than 3%? That's better than people who actually go in and cast a ballot in person. Which I don't understand why we're still doing it in paper ballots in a machine, going to a gymnasium or a town hall or wherever to cast a ballot. And then for another thing I don't understand, excuse me, why isn't Election Day a holiday, but yet President's Day is a holiday? Why is there gerrymandering where the Republican Party and politicians are redrawing the lines for districts to make it harder for people to vote? If you actually stood on subjects and issues that people actually cared about and not pushed yourself away from the mainstream of America, you wouldn't need to do that. You wouldn't need to follow these QAnon conspiracy theories where you're freaking denying the fact that the COVID actually exists and actually is killing people. And the fact that Trump lost the election, let's be honest, clearly lost. And I'm not saying I'm pro Biden, because I'm not, but he's a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. Hell, Curious George could do a better job than Donald Trump, and he's not even real. For the sake of the matter, I just don't understand why we're living in an age that we're living in today. It's 2022, and I feel like we're still living in the 60s. Everything's still about race. Everything is still about controlling women, and you think we'd be past this by now, but for whatever reason, we're not. Another thing I think we need to is that people need to go out and vote. People don't vote yet complain about the people that are in office. It's like you can't have it both ways. You need to actually go out and do something and not just complain about it, not just talk about it, and not get angry about it. Now, it seems like a lot of people are disenfranchised, and I get it. Sometimes it seems like a lot of these politicians are never leaving office. Like Mitch McConnell, I can't believe that dude is still alive. People like Ted Cruz, probably one of the biggest sellouts. In fact, if you're looking for the epitome of a sellout, look at Ted Cruz. In fact, he should change his last name from Cruz to Smith, because there's nothing Hispanic about him whatsoever. Now, back to the gun laws. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but see if you can understand me on my point. The same way that not everyone can drive a car or have a license to drive a car is the same way I feel about guns. Listen, I am not anti-gun. I don't want to take away your guns. I just want to make sure they're in the hands of the right people. If you want to have a gun to go to the shooting range or protect your family or hunt, as long as you're eating the meat or using the skin of the animal, I don't have a problem with it. As long as you're locking it away so no one else can get it, like your children. We're getting too many stories of mass shootings where children are getting their parents' guns and going to school and shooting people. And I think if that's the case, then the parents need to be prosecuted as criminals, just as the person who's actually doing the shooting. I mean, that should just be a law. If you're going to be a gun, you need to be responsible with it. Just like if you're going to get behind the wheel of a car, you should be responsible in your right state of mind. We're targeting and marketing guns towards young children, and it doesn't seem right. Because we keep thinking that it is a rite of passage. It's the Second Amendment. Well, we don't need militia anymore. We have police service, National Guard, military. There is no need to have a gun. And especially there's no need to have an AR-15. If you feel that you need to have an AR-15 to protect your family, you may want to think about witness protection, because clearly the mom is after you. Doesn't make any sense to me now, and it never does, and never will. No one needs a semi-automatic, a Tech 9, an M4. You don't need a 44 or a Desert Eagle. A 22, a 9mm, does the same job, and it's just getting out of hand. Man, and I just don't understand also the disparity in race when it comes to guns. Many young black people are getting arrested for just possession of a weapon that wasn't registered. Meanwhile, Kyle Rittenhouse can go to a place where he didn't belong, there was a curfew, and he wasn't old enough to have the gun, but he can defend himself and not face any consequences. All right, let's just say for the fact of the matter that he was defending himself, even though people were trying to stop him after he shot someone. But let's just say for the fact of the matter he was defending himself. The fact that he was in possession of the weapon should have made him guilty and had him face some kind of penalty, but no, of course not. Of course not, guys, And then after he's found not guilty, the NRA invites him to some convention, and then he's going on talk shows with like Tucker Carlson, who's just a douchebag, and don't even get me started on him. And they're making him a hero and a martyr, which is just ridiculous. Instead of what he is as a criminal. So, I mean, some of these things just need to be dealt with and addressed, and I feel like we don't address it. Meanwhile, we have people like the governor in Oklahoma and Texas who are making it illegal for women and doctors to even discuss or consider an abortion. Many women are going to different states. You're not solving the problem, you're just making it worse. Pretty soon, women are going to start going to like these back alley doctors to have one. And that's dangerous. Many of these kids who are born to certain parents, you're not saving them. You're putting them in jeopardy. Many of these women aren't fit to be mothers, don't want to be mothers, and they end up neglecting and abusing the kid. And then some people say, oh, the system is broken. It's overrun as social workers who don't have kids, who don't know what they're doing. There's documentaries. There's one on Netflix where a kid was taken from his parents, was living with relatives. The system put him back into the household, and they ended up killing him. The father or the boyfriend thought he was gay. They burnt cigarettes on him. They abused him. And he was not even 10 years old, I don't think. So that just shows you how broken our system is when it comes to kids. I think that a woman should have the choice, should at least have the conversation and the consideration to have an abortion. Like I said, if it's forced upon them and it's something that they didn't ask for, if it's rape, incest, why should they bear the burden of raising that child? I mean, many of these Christians are like, oh, God doesn't give you any more than you can handle, or God will work things out. To me, that's the same thing as saying she was asking for it. Oh, see how she was dressed, see how she was acting, she was asking for it. If she was asking for it, she would verbally say, I want it. I want to have a kid. I want to be with you. But it seems like we're still stuck in the 1940s, 1950s, back in the Stone Age even, where we could just go up to a woman, club her over the head, have our way with her, and not have to deal with the consequences or repercussions of our actions. And it just seems like we're just going backwards. Stuck in our ways, stuck in this way of thinking that men are superior. No, not all men. White men. White upper class men are superior when it just simply isn't the case anymore. We need to come together as a people and say what is right and wrong. Controlling someone is wrong. Trying to tell someone what they can and can't do with their bodies is wrong. Trying to prevent people from voting is wrong when these are unalienable rights that people have. Meanwhile, owning a gun is a privilege that only a select few people should have. Like I said, if you're pro-gun, fine. As long as you show the responsibility of owning that gun, And if you cannot, then you do not belong having one, and you should be banned from having one. You look at other countries, they have strict gun laws. Why is it that we cannot have the same strict gun laws here? We have too many people dying from gun violence. I mean, I can list all the mass shootings in Denver, Vegas, Columbine, South Carolina, Virginia Tech, DC. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And we keep having the same discussions over and over and over again. Again, not anti-gun. Don't want to steal your guns. I just want them in the right hands. And this whole idea of the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is to have a good guy with a gun. No, I don't want a teacher having a gun. We have cops. We have security officers, National Guard. They should have guns. You cannot go to the shooting range and think that prepares you for a situation where you might have to take a life. Teachers should teach kids how to be well-rounded adults, not have to be their bodyguards too. Things like this just infuriate me to no degree. I mean, these are discussions that we need to be having with our children. In the midst of all this social media, violent video games, movies, and stuff like that, to address them, what's the difference between fantasy and reality? Having a gun, again, privilege, an honor, not a right. All these people who talk about the Second Amendment need to read the full paragraph about militias. Back in those days, they had a musket. They had to hunt for their food. They had to join the military, like where I come from, Lexington, to fight for their freedom. We don't have those things. We don't need to do those things anymore. And all these people are trying to be militia or good Christians or these right-wing, ultra-conservative people need to realize that you're doing more harm to the country than good. You're harming the views of religion, that you're pushing more and more people away from it than bringing them in. And I think it's time to wake up. I think it's time to come together and heal. This country is so divided on these topics, and we just keep going around and around in circles. And it's now time to really address the matter and get people in office that are actually going to do something about these issues. I like the fact that Biden actually did address, or is trying to address, ghost guns. I mean, he still has a long way to go, but it's a start. Hopefully the people in Texas can vote Beto O'Rourke as governor so he can protect the women's right to choose and to live their lives and seek treatment and get medical advice for their bodies as they see fit, not as man sees fit. But just being honest, telling people how I feel. Hopefully we can have a discussion about it, and let me know what you think. Peace out.